Ace Cosby across the way. And there's Willie across the way.
Hey, man.
And right here, not across the way, but in my own way, Josh Arnold. Your thoughts on that, Tom?
Oh, I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, can you refer to yourself in the third person?
Josh can always do that.
Oh, can he?
Yeah.
Tom can't do that.
You just did that.
Tom does not need to sound any more pretentious or self-centered. One of my favorites, I think, is going to join us via the... There, look at that handsome face.
Frankie.
Yes. It's Frank Caliendo. Hi, Frank.
Hey, I am, wow, I was really enjoying Josh making mistakes and fixing them on the fly.
Well, thank you. I'm a repairman.
That was surreal how well you did that.
Frank is a great stand-up comedian, and I want to mention right off the bat, you can find out where Frank is going to be by going to frankonstage.com. And if I've got this right, Frank, Tuesday, June 20th, you'll be at the famous Funny Bone in Columbus, Ohio. And then Wednesday, June 21st, you'll be at Hilarities in Cleveland, Ohio. Do you still have in-laws there?
Yes, and my wife, my whole family's actually traveling with me for both those dates.
Oh.
It's my wife's birthday, June 20th, but so here's the thing. She wasn't real excited about the dates I picked, but which is standard. She's in for some fun. Is that how you did it,
That's
Josh?
right. That's right.
So we're traveling in because we're going to fly to Italy from the Midwest area. So I took a couple of dates to help pay for that.
Gotcha.
So yeah, Columbus, Ohio, on her birthday, which is where I proposed to her at the Funny Bone on stage.
Oh. Frank.
Yeah. Other mistakes also made there on stage. No. I truly, hey, I love her. You know, what a crowd.
Frank,
and then we'll go visit my brother-in-law in Cleveland and spend a little time in Cleveland. My mother-in-law doesn't live there anymore. She lives here.
Does she live at your place in Phoenix?
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, you're enjoying yourself.
Right,
lot of fun.
Right there in your house, huh?
I have never heard... I never realized how old my wife was until she started hanging out with her mom more, and they just talk about old lady things and just fight about who's talking louder. My daughter went to dinner with them last night because my cousin was in town. And she texts me, I'm hanging out with old ladies. Ever notice how much I hang out with old ladies? This is awful. They're talking about their gardens.
Frank, I don't know, you probably know this, but women love it. Like, your wife will love it if you remind her that she's sounding more and more like her mother.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've experienced the wrath of that. Because I don't have a filter. I mean, a lot of us I like it to like a used car salesman where they can't turn it off. Right, like you go to dinner with a car salesman, and you're making a deal to pass the potatoes, that kind of thing. And it's one of those deals where I just say things sometimes because I think it's gonna, get a laugh, and it's the opposite. I'm like in Man on the Moon, Andy Kaufman, where I'm thank you very much because I'm getting nothing. So you're right. Don't say that stuff, and I do, and it gets me in a lot of trouble. But I want to be honest with her because that's what she says. Be honest with me. So when I'm real honest, and then she gets real honest.
So Frank, we're speaking with, of course, the great comedian Frank Caliendo. You're going to be in Columbus, Ohio, and Cleveland, Ohio, in order to raise money to send yourself to Italy. Are they going to pay you in lira?
What was that? I was still laughing about how you set that up.
I understand the exchange rate for the lira is like 10,000 lira equals a quarter.
You know what? I don't even. My wife is handling all of it because I will just get angry if I see the amount of money we're spending.
Yeah,
I think it's euros anyway.
It's euros, yeah. I was going to say.
Where's the lira now? Still in Turkey or something? So, Frank, this is completely off any topic that you're interested in. We were talking about growing up and watching local television, and almost every TV station or every city certainly had one usually male horror film host. I grew up with Goulardi in Cleveland, and there are so many great ones out there. The most famous, I guess, is Elvira. She was kind of more of a national figure. Did you have one in Milwaukee?
I don't remember one. I was going to say Elvira was one I remembered. There was a guy with a hat. It's always a guy with a top hat or something, and Dracula blood coming down the fangs, the fake fangs or something. I can't remember if there was. I remember they would play like the movies and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, crummy, usually black and white horror movies that they would get cheap.
Yeah, I don't remember. I wish I'm glad
Dr.
you guys gave me some show prep.
Well, you do the usual interviews. They're going to go, "Hey, what would John Madden sound like doing Dracula?" I'm not.
Well, I don't know. Let's ask Will Ferrell. Everybody texts me, you should be in that Madden movie. You should be. For the people who don't know, like Will Ferrell got cast as John Madden. I actually think it's really good casting because people say, Frank, you should be doing the John Madden. I'm like, I'm 5'6". I could be Mini Madden. That's what it would be. Say hello to Mini Madden. Throw me a freaking bone here, please. You know, they'd have to CGI my body as like Jabba the Hutt the entire movie. That's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, I mean, Will Ferrell didn't play George W. Bush in the movie. No, Josh Brolin used me as inspiration. That's just throwing that out there.
It looks like Dr. Destruction. Does that ring a bell for you in Milwaukee?
I do no.
Okay.
No, unless I just blocked it out.
Well, you may not have watched.
Well, we're trying to get Josh to be a late night movie host.
Oh, I'd love it.
I think that would be fun. Well, part of this happened because Josh and I were texting back and forth, and he had really liked the Paul Giamatti impression I'd been working on.
I love it.
And it's funny because people hear things differently. I'm tuning in. I'm zoning in on it more and more. But it usually starts with you find a phrase a lot of times with the person that gets you going. And with Paul Giamatti, it's I believe, and I get into it.
That's it.
From there. I believe watching late night horror movies is the only way to go. And I don't care. I am not drinking any effing Merlot.
Wow.
We will be drinking blood the entire night. That's what we'll do. I am ready to do this right now and make it happen.
Frank, you have no idea that when I was recovering from something pretty serious, I watched the movie Sideways probably 10 times. It's my favorite movie. You have nailed Paul Giamatti.
It's funny though, because I watched him mostly from Billions to get it. And he's a great actor. He's one of the people you can actually see him thinking on the screen. And I think that's what makes him fantastic is you see the wheels turning as he's doing things. But in that show, he's very, very deep. That's and he gets the excitable younger Giamatti's a little bit different. I'm working on how to get that as well. That's part of the range of the impression. But people will hear different things. They're like, that sounds more like people were telling me Jack Nicholson, and then I did on social media. I'm like, well, this is how Jack Nicholson actually sounds, and you're completely wrong. And then people were like, your Paul Giamatti sounds like Heath Ledger in The Joker. And I'm like, I don't know. And then I tried to do some lines as the Joker, Heath Ledger's version from The Dark Knight. And I realized they were right because the more intense you get, the more he becomes like that Heath Ledger's Joker. Like, you want to know how I got these scars? My father was a drinker and a fiend. And one night, he goes off crazier than usual. Mommy gets the kitchen knife to defend herself. He doesn't like that. Oh, no. Not one bit so. Me watching, he takes the knife to her, laughing while he does it. Turns to me and he says, why so serious? Comes at me with the knife. Why so serious? So it's like, wow, that's you're right on the money with that. My instinct that anybody online who says an impression doesn't sound right, I'm like, you should die.
Hey, by the way, I want to stop the interview for one second. Frank, I am giving you a standing ovation in my head. That was so brilliant.
Oh, well, thank you.
We were all so stunned we couldn't laugh.
No, we just loved it. Mesmerized.
I try to tell myself that's what happens all the time.
Frank Caliendo is one of my favorite human beings. Frank is a great dad and apparently a great husband. I'm not going to elaborate. Here's a real quick question. No one will understand if you do this. Do you do an impression of your mother-in-law?
No, not really.
I mean, behind her back, do you walk up to your wife?
No, just my mother-in-law sounds so much like Paul Giamatti.
Nice save.
Are you going to take out that trash? Because I believe it needs to be outside right now.
Are there any lady impressions that you do?
Not human.
Okay.
The reason I say it is because cartoon, I could do a Marge Simpson. Oh, homie. That's...
Yeah, you do
Miss
Miss Piggy.
But you bring it down, it's actually Daryl Dixon from The Walking Dead. Oh, I didn't even know we are going to do that. We got to take care of this.
It's amazing. It's when you talk to Frank, he just uncovers these profound truths. You go, oh my God, that's right. It's the same voice.
Here's one that I've talked to you some before, but I've elaborated more recently on social media. It's people always say, John C. Reilly, did you touch my drum set? That voice right there. You put some more air in it, becomes Mark Ruffalo. I see this as an absolute win. I had no idea. There we go. And if you bring it down too much in the back of the throat, it's kind of Kermit the Frog. Hi ho, Kermit the Frog. There's two elements to it. Kermit the Frog and Fozzie Bear. Wow, waka, waka, waka. You go too deep with that Fozzie Bear part and you get like Ray Romano, oh no, that in there. So, and then the end, if you combine them all, it becomes Joe Rogan. Wow, Jamie, pull that up. Oh my God. Unbelievable. Why would you effing do that? Oh no.
Frank Caliendo is our guest. You can see Frank Caliendo on stage in Columbus, Ohio at the Columbus Funny Bone. That's going to be on June 20th. And that is, if I'm not mistaken, a Tuesday. Wednesday, June 21st at Hilarities in Cleveland, Ohio. And once again, this is a special event. It's the Pay for Frank's Trip to Italy event. You're going to love it. Where are you going in Italy? Do you know?
We are starting out in Rome, and then we go down to Sorrento, I believe, and then we work our way up to like Florence and Venice.
Nice.
So I'm kind of a weirdo. People already know that in many different ways, but I would never fly over water. I was always scared to fly over water. So my wife had this belief we would, large bodies of water. I'd fly over a lake or a pool or something, but flying over
over the
different
ocean
countries, I was always scared of. And people ask me why. I'm like, well, hey, they're just. I don't want to say anything bad. I don't want to jinx myself right now. But it was one of those things where I wouldn't do it. So now that I got a couple gigs in Hawaii and some different places because money, you can buy me pretty easily out of fear. And so now we're doing that. And she's, my whole family's really excited. My son went on a trip to Europe with his high school last year after graduation. They do it. You take this class and then you go to Europe. And all my son said the whole time he was with my wife while she went as a quote unquote chaperone. Yeah, right. And he's like, I wish Dad could be here to see this. So they talked me into it, and it's going to be fun. And my family, the origins of my family are from Italy. So that'll
the
be
old country.
Yeah, returning.
You will have a great time.
It's wonderful.
Once again, our guest is Frank Caliendo, one of my favorite people. Frank is a great performer on stage. You don't want to miss Mr. Caliendo. And you do a lot of pure stand-up as well as the voices.
I do some. I mix the voices in a lot. It's what people like to hear. I found that... I always use a lot of people who do impressions do hey, this guy would do this and it would go something like this, that type of thing, fill in the blank. And I always like to use it like a radio producer where they have the button that they could press and a sound effect would come on. That's the way I liked Robin Williams. That's what I loved is Robin Williams would break into something. Oh my God. And he'd do that. And then there's Jack Nicholson on the side and he's like, hey, how are you? That type of thing to use them quickly, get in and get out. But but yeah, there's jokes in there too. Just they're spread out like right now.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about contemporary culture is because there are 1,000 TV channels. I'm sure there's someone listening right now that doesn't know who Paul Giamatti is.
Oh, of course,
it's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, and he's I'd say he's an A-list, high level. I guess people might call him a character actor, but he's a big time actor.
Sure.
That if you could get him, you could if you could sign him to a show, the show is probably going to get made. That's not. There's not too many people where that can happen. So, people don't know names. Like I remember this with Robert Downey Jr. I say Robert Downey Jr. and then not everybody knows, and I say Tony Stark, and people are like, yeah, and I'm like, that's amazing. I did this in Florida, and a lot goes on in Florida, but I said this was real. This really happened. I go, I can't believe you guys know a fictional character more than the real person. And somebody said, well, that's because you got it wrong, Frank. I'm like, do tell. That's because Tony Stark's the real guy. Iron Man's the fictional character.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't ask real quick a couple of the classics. You almost had an opportunity to do George W. Bush in front of the president. Is that correct?
Well, that happened quite a while ago. There were different times where that happened.
I was supposed to do the presidential correspondence dinner, but they hired me to do the congressional correspondence dinner right before because Cheney had shot the guy in the woods and they wanted him to be seen laughing.
Oh, yeah.
So I did that. I did Bush next to him and Cheney's on the side, Very funny. Basically turning into the penguin.
Okay, and lastly, this is really unfair. Is there any impression you've worked on that nobody likes?
That people don't find good?
Yeah, that they go, no, that's you don't have it, Frank. So.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them start that way where people, because it's hard to get your own voice out of it, so people don't always hear it. You ever do that thing where watch a YouTube video where they show the pitches and people can't hear the different tones? The high tones at certain ages, that you start to lose people who can hear it. Have you seen those?
I know all about it.
Right. But that's people when doing an impression is like doing a magic trick, right? It's basically sleight of voice. So I'm doing things to manipulate my throat and stuff like that, and people or parts of my mouth and whatever to get that voice. So people hear things differently, and you're covering something up. So it's almost like people can see through it. I'm trying to think of a specific one. I mean, I get a lot of blowback on that Paul Giamatti from people online. That people are like, he doesn't sound like that at all.
No, it's perfect. They're wrong.
Well, thank you. That's what I tell them too.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay.
There are plenty. Ray Romano was one I threw it out there and was like, oh no. And I was like, I'm just doing a voice just to kind of throw it out there, and people are always like, nah, he's quite a bit different than that. It's not.
I know, Ma.
Frank, last thing. Does your son do a Frank Caliendo impression?
Yeah, he can. I mean, he can do some different impressions and stuff. Like, does he do one of me? Probably not that he shows me that, but I'm sure my kids mock my wife more to me, so I'm sure they're mocking me to her.
Go see Mr. Caliendo. You will not regret it. He's a brilliant stand-up comedian. Thanks for your time, Frank. Columbus, Ohio, June 20th. That's a Tuesday. And then Wednesday, June 21st, Hilarities in Cleveland. And you can find Frank's dates at frankonstage.com. Go back to sleep, Frank.
I'd love to. And don't forget watching Killer Bees from Outer Space tonight on our movie.
Thanks, Frank.
Have a great trip.